In this clip, we will review cervical vertebra, how to differentiate them from thoracic and lumbar vertebra, as well as review C1 and C2 structures. When you look at a cervical vertebra, and of course you have 7 of them, so C1 through C7, the main distinguishing feature are these 2 holes on the sides. We call those the transverse foramina for plural or transverse foramen for singular. If you compare them to a thoracic vertebra, notice how these transverse foramina do not exist in a thoracic or even a lumbar vertebra. Okay? So this is how you can distinguish immediately a cervical vertebra from the rest. Other structures are pretty similar. You have the spinous process, the body, the vertebral foramen, where the spinal cord will enter, as well as superior articular facets, superior articular processes, and on the inferior side, inferior articular facet and inferior articular process on the back side. Now, of the 7 cervical vertebrae, we pay specific attention to C1 and C2. Starting with C1, also known as the atlas, this has a pretty unique structure because it lacks a body as well as a spinous process. Instead, it has a posterior tubercle right here. So this is pointing posteriorly, and we have an anterior tubercle on the anterior side. The anterior tubercle is pretty much along the same side as the transverse foramen, so that's how you can start to orient yourself and figure out that this side is anterior versus posterior. So this makes this the anterior tubercle and this side the posterior tubercle. On the C1 atlas, you will notice the superior articular facets. They're slightly more elongated than the inferior articular facets. And that's how you can pretty much distinguish the superior side from the inferior side. Okay. Additional structures would be the superior articular process, which is the backside of the superior articular facet, but we can generalize this term and refer to them as the lateral masses only in this case of the C1 atlas. So we have the superior articular facet, inferior articular facet, and then the big bulky mass in between those two is referred to as the lateral mass. Finally, we have C2, also known as the axis. This also has unique features, specifically this dens right here, protrusion at the top. So this dens is always pointing superiorly, and that's how you can identify superior versus inferior. On the dens, or on the C2 axis, you can also identify the spinous process, superior articular facets, transverse processes, as well as the transverse foramina on either side. Okay. Finally, you can also identify the inferior articular facets.